All right, hey everybody, welcome back to Hawman's Advice Forum. I'm the Hawman, and I'm going to answer all your questions from the AMA from December 24th, 2020. Today's December 29th. I can't believe time has passed by that fast. Feels like yesterday that I posted my previous video. All right, so I am going to answer. Only one person actually posted a question, Chris Reagan. And just before I read your question, I'm just going to make a quick note that, Chris, you got to kind of do a spot check on your grammar before submitting your questions. Although I do appreciate the emails and thoughtful analysis that you do send me. I feel like you do a lot more research than I would because I'm kind of a lazy guy, to be honest, but really appreciate it. All right. Um, all right. So your question is, let's read your question, Chris. I remember when watching your videos earlier that you said even in 2004, you could see that the world was disorganized and unprepared for a downturn to happen, whether economic, social, or another aspect of life. And quick side note there, that's what I mean by the awkward grammar. So work on that. I'm going to resume reading your question. So for me, I would say around 2018, 2019, I had that realization also, which is why I partly found your channel very insightful. My question is, do you think society is only being elevated by the success of past generations, which explains why things don't collapse? Or is it the case that minimal organization has always been around keeping society afloat? That's a really good question and something I think I used to obsess about in early adulthood. And to be honest, I don't really have the answer to that question. But I did used to think about it a lot. And so I think it's a little bit of both. And it's still possible that society could collapse. But we just don't know when. Right? And that's what happens with all centralized structures, kind of like the Soviet Union. Now, obviously, we don't live in the Soviet Union, but we do live in a centralized command type economy where only a few corporations pretty much control not just the national but the global economy, right? Isn't that crazy? But I think it's a little bit of both. So I think there were many amazing discoveries made in the 1800s. And if you remember from John Taylor Gatto's book, The Underground History of American Education, he said that before I think public schools were made or founded, Americans held 80% of the patents in the world. And then in modern day America, back when he was alive, I don't know what year that was, like he talked about this, but he said Americans only held like 5% of the patents in the world or some ridiculous number. And if you open up any sort of like chemistry textbook and just look at like the history of discoveries, I remember like reading my really big ass AP chemistry textbook that broke my back as like a 16-year-old. I remember that, and I remember like reading all these like how all these this like scientists made these crazy discoveries that I know I never would have made in my lifetime back then. And so whether it's the discovery of electricity, I don't know. I just feel like yes, we are living here at the moment because of the success of the past generations, but there's always leaps and bounds in technology that's being discovered by a certain group of smart people, which kind of is kind of, I guess, how would I say, which also kind of reinforces the other point that we don't need too many people around to keep society afloat. And I think this is why that the rulers of society, whether you want to call them the New World Order or the globalists or whoever, whatever you want to call them, have been obsessed with population control. So they I don't know what the exact number is, but it's either like a billion or like 500 million. But I've heard this from several sources. For example, like the Georgia Guidestones, I think I heard a rumor that that was created by Ted Turner, founder of CNN. And in those Georgia Guidestones here in the state of Georgia, it talks about how they want to keep the population under 500 million to achieve balance in the world or something like that. And so we don't need too many people to keep society afloat. And that's because the amazing improvements in you know, production and the economy have made it possible so that we don't need too many people in the world. And this is something that was talked about in John Taylor Gatto's book, again, in the Underground History of American Education, where they want to dumb down most of the populace to work in the factories because the factories were so productive, and you don't need too many, you don't need smart people to work factories, you need the dumb people to work there. And ironically, was George Carlin's, I think, last bit where he talks about education, how like, politicians always hide behind children education or something like that, and that they always try to push education because like they want to dumb you down, but they want you to be smart enough to like run the factories and do the paperwork, but not dumb enough to know how fucked you're getting over. And I feel like that George Carlin's last bit before he passed away is so relevant to what's going on today. And so it's kind of a myriad of things, but to be honest, I don't have the answer. So it's yes, we're here because of the success of the past generations, but we build upon the new inventions, faster internet, crazy, space weapons and all that, because we have a group of smart people, but we don't need too many smart people to make those leaps forward in development of technology and science and yada yada yada. We don't need 300 million. See, if we in a population of 300 million, we don't need 100 million scientists. Maybe like 1,000 to 5,000. You know what I'm saying? We don't need too many of them. Even though there's a good chunk, and even if you have a school system that dumbs down kids, there's always going to be that 1 or 2% that somehow make it and are still geniuses. And society, I guess, somehow has a way of filtering those types of people out and then using them for its own agenda, right? So, again, a little bit of both. Not too many people needed to keep the economy running, which is why you have lots of bullshit paper-pushing jobs. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, because before the Industrial Revolution, you just needed people. You had like 8 kids because you needed them to work the farms, right? And then once society got more and more productive, and you needed less people for the actual economy to run, you still needed to give people something to do. So what society decided to do was just give them bullshit jobs, and so everybody would move to the city. And in the city, it's just full of bullshit jobs, office jobs, something bureaucratic like working in a government, law firm, corporate America, right? Paperwork everywhere. If all those people were fired tomorrow, nobody would miss them. You know what I'm saying? Nobody would miss them because they're not really doing anything productive, right? So, to get back to my point, I think it's all related to the things that are talked about by John Taylor Gatto in the book, The Underground History of American Education, with the dumbing down of society, the Industrial Revolution. People, we don't need too many smart people in society because the machines and the factories that society has that produces the products that we consume are so productive that if you killed off most of the population, we could still have those factories running, which is why the elite is so obsessed with killing all of us off, which is unfortunate. I kind of wish I didn't know most of this, because maybe I would have been more happier if I were ignorant. But at the same time, I look at other people who are ignorant and they look like they've lost their minds. So yeah, so it's just kind of like that. And then, again, just to reiterate, go look at George Carlin's last bit. I forgot what it's called, but if you type in like George Carlin and education or something like that, it should appear. Oops, sorry. Where he talks about how the rulers of the world are fucking us over because they don't need us to be that smart. So I guess a bunch of smart people came to the same conclusion that at one point we were smart and then we got dumber and dumber and dumber because society allowed us to be because of the success of the past generations. And then every time we do have advancements and leaps forward in technology, it's not because we need too many people. We just only need a couple thousand people to help ride that wave in the next development of technology. Right. And I've also heard theories that a lot of the technology we have, and I know this is kind of getting out there, was provided to us by like alien races who are in contact with the globalists or the New World Order, who then impose like the next what do you call it? Who are in charge of deploying the next generation of technology in society. I've heard that. But, at this stage of life, I'm willing to believe anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I guess, like, as you get older, your filter, you hear these crazy theories, and as a kid, you think, like, man, like, that's insane. Like, why would, people, or why would that happen? And then as you get older, like, you start questioning everything because nothing starts to make sense anymore. So, hopefully, maybe that answered your question. I don't think it answered your question at all, to be honest, because I don't have the answer to that question because it's something that I obsessed about for a long time, and I wish I did. But I feel like if I were a young adult and I just saw a functional, happy society in front of me, it's that those are two questions I would have never had to think about. But just seeing the dysfunctionality and the in society right in front of my eyes, it's like, I always used to wake up every day wondering, like, how is society not collapse? And who knows, maybe it might collapse, right? It might collapse, we don't know, because all centralized structures, I guess, collapse. But maybe our society, because again, I don't know how centralized our society is, because there's a lot of things that I don't know about our society. There's a lot of things that I still don't know. So all right, so that's it for today. Hopefully, this was educational for me, but it's just me rambling on. All right, so if you have any thoughts, comments, leave below, and I'll see you guys next time.